All right, it's Saturday, Saturday, Saturday. Oh my gosh, folks. If you're listening to the sound of my voice, thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you also for to Glenn and Jen. After the debacle of what was it last Tuesday night, and we tried a third time. That at that point it was a third time to get through this same material. And before we start going into this again, because this would be the fourth attempt, I just want to say that there's a reason why this particular material we feel, and three of us agree, is very important. Jenà was a wonderful person in my estimation. I regret that I didn't get a chance to know her more than I could have. But that's the way it goes sometimes. When people come into the chat, you know them as much as they come around and things like that. And then sometimes when something tragic like this happens, then of course there's a lot of regret. From what I was able to see, she was a person that was loved and cared for, and people cared about her. And I believe she cared about people. And it's an absolute tragedy that she's not here anymore. And she's missed by a lot of folks. And as you'll see when I do the write-up again, when we do the write-up again, you'll see that it was important to her that if anyone could be helped by her words or her situation, that we were to use this. And we've tried. We've tried. A lot of these broadcasts, maybe all of them, if I misspoke, and all of them in this series, An Unfinished Life, had to do with Jenà and comments that she made. And with her passing, we're continuing to do this. And then there'll be one more show in this series, show number 6, which will be tomorrow night at the regularly scheduled time. Sorry, I misspoke. We'll be starting at 8 p.m. as we said. And by the way, we're still looking for anyone's comments on changing to that time, 8 o'clock instead of 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So feel free to put that in the chat if you'd like to. You can make comments in the description as well. Okay. So if you're asking yourself, well, this is the fourth time I've heard this and you don't want to hear it. If for some reason all the other times that it failed, you got enough of it, we completely understand. But this will be a truncated version. It will be, we're not going to go the full 2 hours. We just we're not going to speed through it or anything, but we've answered these questions that come along with this 3 other times now, and it changes every time. As most things, if you answer the same question, you had time to think about it, and life goes on. And we're not going to speed through it, but we're not going to take as much time. We all felt it was important, Glenn especially, and I understand that because Glenn was the person that had a chance more than all of us, I think, to have these conversations, these important conversations with Jenà. And it touches my heart that it's important to him. And when it failed Tuesday, at that time, all of us were like, okay, we're done with this. We're just move forward. And, people change their minds and they have time to get over the frustration of it. And that's what happened in this case. So with all that preamble said, here it is. Attempt number 4 in the series, An Unfinished Life, and tonight's version is Restlessness. Normally we would introduce the panel and say hello to everyone in the chat, and so for the purpose of tonight, I'm just going to do it myself and say hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for being here. If you're listening to the playback, we appreciate you stopping by. It's not that we don't care about the people in the chat. We're happy to see everyone that's here. Like I said, we would like to get through this one time and have it work. And because of the experience that we've had, this is the way we're doing it tonight. So it's speaking. If you haven't ever heard True Story Live before, my name is Jason. I'm the host of this broadcast. I look at it as we share the hosting duties, but it's kind of my job to kind of go through things. With me also is my wonderful wife, Jen, and you'll get to hear her voice in a moment. And also our friend from Australia, Glenn, who is also the producer of this broadcast, who has painstakingly gone through a lot of effort to try to get this working and has done a lot on his end to try to figure out what the problem is. Okay. So we're grateful to him for that. And so you'll get to hear him during the question portion as well. All right. So without further ado, we're going to get into this now. Again, for tonight, Jen has agreed to read the parts for Jenà. There's several parts in here. It has worked out well several times. It's just that unfortunately, a lot of people didn't get a chance to hear it because of the dropouts and the sound issues and things like that. So we hope you guys enjoy. An Unfinished Life, Restlessness. And Jen, if you're ready, you can start when you would like.
Okay. I'm not perfect, and I will never be. I would love to love who I am and not care about anybody else's thoughts about me. Sounds so free. I'm getting too old for this crap. And that's from Jenà Shanks.
Why then an unfinished life? Well, it's one thing that we can say each person who is alive has in common. We're all going to expire. An unfinished life, and the link is in the description. Continuing from last week, not only was our friend Jenà struggling, she was restless too. Let's call it insecurity, for want of a better word. With Jenà's prior consent, I am sharing extracts of conversations from the first 2 days that she and I spoke privately in mid-February 2021. Jenà always made it clear that if ever her words could be used for the good of others, there was to be no hesitation. We respect her wishes. Restlessness, also in the description, is described as lightly dramatic piano and subtle strings, layer with synths and bells for a mysterious intro, builds up to a more serious middle before the orchestra comes in with driving violins and bold brass for a sweeping climax. Our friends from Audiomachine and the album La Belle Epoque. Tonight, part 5, if we can get through it, essentially seeks some of the reasons why many people are inherently restless and uneasy with their existence. This all poses some huge questions that is where we are headed this evening. Presented below are Jenà's paragraphs with relevant questions for consideration.
Lots to think about. Even a friend, best, in my life would need to be able to share, even without the physical side. I gravitate to people who are open and share when there is closeness. Now, just a friend? I don't care. We can talk about the weather. I do not believe I have experienced what I have desired. I take my responsibility for that.
And some questions related to what Jen just read for Jenà. What distinguishes a friend from a best friend? What is friendship?
How can a person love you if they don't know you? I have changed that thought over the last few years. Love is a choice, yes? But most of our shallowness, and if the other person doesn't act, do we say what we think? Then we are leaving. I always believed love was a feeling. Now, not so much. I guess it takes me time to actually fall for someone, but when I do, it doesn't change and it gets stronger. I believe, anyhow.
Is love a feeling? Is love a choice? What is attraction? What is love?
I'm in a sad place today. Not sure why. Could it be because I am revisiting some of my past? Yes, I get devastated when people leave me. Things might be different if there was harmony and peace, then that person wanted to leave. I am fine when it comes to non romantic relationships. I can do a mind reset for that area. It's the love, or what I believe is love. If someone doesn't want to be in my life, then I can't make them. I believe that's why I hold on to relationships, even bad ones. I apologize for things that I didn't do just to smooth things out. Writing all this makes me super sad that I would allow men to treat me badly. I know, as I said, I wasn't always perfect.
Why might some people view the breakup of a non romantic relationship as less devastating than the breakup of a romantic relationship? Why might some people sacrifice their own peace and harmony to stay in a toxic relationship situation? Sorry. When someone says they know my heart, what might this mean?
I think I was there at one point in my life. I remember knowing that until I am secure in me, I would attract better people. That was before I was 25. I need this to stick and not be wavering. It seems Jen isn't wavering. I cannot anymore. I am valuable. I really want to believe it. Honestly, Glenn, I think I shut myself down, decided that my thoughts and opinions didn't matter, and I stopped being in touch with me. Not only that, but having my anxiety for over 6 years was a nightmare. Truly, I couldn't bear it after 3 years and tried to take my life. But God wanted me here. For me, being quiet has become me. I have almost forgotten my opinions at times, what I like or not like. I suppose that is why I feel messed up or lost. I can see that I have a weakness, not sure what that is, but not able to tell people I'm insecure, not comfortable.
There's nothing unique here. This can be any one of us. To everyone who hears or reads this broadcast, your opinion does matter. You matter. The final question: how does one create a safe environment for one person to speak with another? Next week, in this case, tomorrow, part six, the final part of An Unfinished Life, we'll invite you to have your day in the sun. Anyway, that's how I described it to our good friend Gia. I wonder who will avail themselves of the opportunity. We shall see. And then we end with a quote. We're not done. We end right up with a quote. We humans have we have two great problems. The first is knowing when to begin. The second is knowing when to stop. And that's from our friend Hualo Kawalo.
You had it better last try.
Did have it better. I had it better all three tries compared to Hualo Kawalo. There we go. All right, guys. Thanks for we have always been able to get through that. Then it falls apart later. Okay, so do us a favor. Just if you can't hear us, or if there's any echo or anything like that, how does the sound? How is the sound to everyone? If you're hearing me in the chat, if you could just respond in the chat, that would be great. Everything looks good on our end. I just want to be sure you guys can hear us okay. If you don't mind. Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Celine. Good to see you. Believe on Lord Jesus Christ. Nathan's in here. Good to see Nathan. More than a flame. Hello, Joel. Nice to see you. And let's see. I guess that's it. Stephanie was in here earlier.
Yeah.
She might still be here. I don't know. Okay. All right. So here we are, guys. And like I said at the beginning of the show, this will be an abbreviated version. Normally we go on and on with the questions. And since we've already answered them before, we should all have our answers ready. So we'll just go
Unless
over
they've
the questions.
changed.
Yeah. So, and this time I'm going to flip flop it. So it starts out with what distinguishes a friend from a best friend, and then it's what is friendship. And I'm going to ask what is friendship first, and then we'll describe what distinguishes a friend from a best friend. I'm choosing that. That's my obligation as the host.
All right.
What is friendship, Jen?
I think friendship is having a relationship with someone that's more than surface.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hmm.
More than
Huh?
acquaintance. See,
Yeah, more than acquaintance. Yeah.
yeah. The beauty of having answered these questions is I remember some of the stuff you said.
You're gonna steal it.
Yeah, I could. That's why I
uh,
started with you first, so I wouldn't feel.
you know, the old me would have said, somebody that you have stuff in common with, and the same kind of core beliefs and all that kind of. But I've as the years have gone by, I've made some more friends out of my comfort zone because I do think
Mhm.
it's kind of a comfort zone when you seek out like-minded people or
Right.
like people. And I'm just really grateful to say that I have some friends that are different from me, like
Yeah.
Glenn, in the sense of beliefs, like
Glenn's
faith.
different than everyone, though.
And just differences and still being able to connect with
Yeah.
people, and be kind and loving to
Mhm.
people that are still have some differences, and not everything is like matchy matchy.
Mhm.
So
Good point.
yeah.
I think it's great to have friends that are not exactly the same as we are, and I think it's a wonderful thing to not believe the same thing and still be able to be friends, still be able to gain something from that relationship. Who knows? Even if your beliefs aren't the same, you might learn something from someone that believes differently than you. That's my opinion. Um, so many times in the quote unquote Christian community, if someone believes differently, and it's different if someone believes differently and what they believe is toxic to other people. If it's not the truth, if it goes against scripture, goes against. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be careful with someone that is believing something that teaches against what scripture says. Not saying that, but some things are more open to interpretation. So someone might read the same passage of scripture, not going against what it says, but might have a different opinion about it. For example, thank you, Jen, for your definition. And I would borrow from you. I would say that it's deeper than an acquaintance relationship. I would say there's some level of trust. Uh, it's someone that you can depend on for the most part. Um, yeah. So in the effort to keep things kind of flowing, I'll leave it there. So I think most people have a good idea of what friendship is. And guys, if you want to enter your opinion in the chat, we would love you to do that. And hello to Rachel Menifee. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. Thank you. Glenn, what is friendship first, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I think even if you have a different opinions on things, I think friendship is still where you can relate to them in some way and they can relate to you. I think it's not a friendship's not a one-way street. It's an
Oh yeah.
interchange of something that's going to bind you to them. It can be anything really. I mean, you can pick 100 things.
Hmm.
I think it's just something more than just someone you meet in this. But okay, if you meet
I
someone in the
completely agree. Yeah.
yeah, if you meet someone in the street like I did uh, a few months ago, and the guy, I said, "Hey, how you going?" To this guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, yeah." We got talking about 5 minutes. He says, "I read Scientific American." I said, "Tell me more." So therefore, you immediately engage with the person. Now that then, with some kind of commonality, gives you the option. If you then discuss things and down the line, you will either be an acquaintance or you will either get closer and discuss more things. I think it really is just being open, and if it comes along, you're going to realise that that person's a friend pretty fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank
Now
you.
I'm gonna stay with you,
Okay.
and you can be as short as you like. But what distinguishes a friend from a best friend, if there is anything, if there's any difference for you between the two?
Answered this one the
Yeah,
other night,
four times,
and
four times.
that's why I'm not putting the images up because so I'm just going to we're just going to sit with the chat
Yeah.
on the broadcast.
Uh,
Not going to tempt fate, so to
yeah,
speak.
we understand. We understand.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think I said the other night I didn't see a difference between a friend and a best friend. I just think you're either a friend, as you classify it, or you're not. I don't see the best friend actually is more relevant in the
Yeah.
sense that everyone that is your friend is essentially your best friend, which I know disagrees with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay. As
Yeah,
Jen said at the beginning, we can still be friends and disagree.
Mhm.
exactly.
What about you, Jen? Thank you, Glenn.
Okay.
What distinguishes a friend from a best friend in your mind?
I'm gonna hold fast to my comment I think it might have been on the second or third try,
Okay.
um, is where, I mean, I know, like, when you're best friends with someone, you're still getting to know them, but, like, friendship to me, aside from best friends,
Mm.
you're still kind of feeling out the person and getting to know each other, and, um, whereas a best friend, it's like you really, really know them, even though you're still getting to know them, because
Right.
people change, hopefully, a
Yeah.
little bit every day. Hopefully, they're
Right.
getting better, not worse.
We hope, right?
Yeah, we hope.
Yeah.
But, so that would be the difference for me.
Okay.
Someone that, you're still getting to know, but you do have, like, those things in common, and what was the term Glenn used? Relate. There's things
Yeah.
that you're finding that you relate to, these
Sure.
people. But, excuse me, but yeah, best friends, just people that you feel, like you had mentioned, people that you feel at home with,
Yeah.
that you trust and are really close to, and that know you really well, and vice versa.
Sure. I like that. So what distinguishes a friend from a best friend? I'm going to use the word acquaintance. So to me, an acquaintance is just someone that you know. Could be someone that you work with, a friend of the family that you know, someone that one of your friends brings to a party, or whatever. Someone that you know. I mean, when you see him, you're like, oh, that's Bill, but you've never gotten to know them. And then if you take that relationship with an acquaintance and you spend a little bit more time, you start to get to know them a little bit, and it's someone that you kind of like. I like the idea of having some things in common, or having a way that you connect to the person. So to me, on that level, at some point, they change from being an acquaintance to a friend. If you take that same person, we'll call him Bill, just to keep it moving. You're around Bill more and more, and he went from acquaintance to friend, and now you find more than just having things in common. You really like this person even more, and you've been in a couple situations where you think, I can trust them. Maybe they've come forward in a situation where you needed someone and they were there for you. Certainly, I would say the difference in an acquaintance and a best friend is that an acquaintance will never take you to an airport, to drop you off for a flight. That's not going to happen. And generally, I probably shouldn't make broad generalizations like that. But a best friend will get up at 2 a.m. and take you to the airport. To me, that's a huge difference. And,
Yeah.
yes, I'm a little biased because acts of service to me are important in the love language category. So if I have a friend that I know that I can count on, who will take me to the airport or help me move, that moves them into best friend territory rather than friend. I totally respect the way Glenn looks at it. I do. Um, and that's why I've kind of described it like I did. I have people that I consider friends. It's not that I don't trust them, but someone like Jen that I spend most of my time with, and I've really been in more than one situation where I know that I can trust her. To me, she's a best friend, where someone else, I haven't had that opportunity. So I would classify them not on best friend level, but just on friend level. And again, it's not up here. It's part of the question. But an acquaintance, I have lots of acquaintances. I have people that I know. I know the lady that leases the apartment to us. I mean, she's an acquaintance. I've talked to her on the phone a couple times. She's not a friend. She's not a best friend. Nowhere close to that. She's just someone that I know. So these distinctions aren't a bad thing. Although I understand the way Glenn's answering, I certainly do. But to me, it's okay to classify someone as a best friend if your feelings for them are deeper in some ways. So there we go. Okay. So we got through the first set of questions, and I think we're still going well here. So I failed to ask you, Jen, to read the above paragraph again. So this time I'll ask you, before we get to the next set of questions, if you could read
Sure.
Janae's responses.
Okay, good deal. Okay. How can a person love you if they don't know you? I have changed that thought over the last few years. Love is a choice, yes? But most of our shallowness, and if the other person doesn't act, do we say what we think? Then we are leaving. I always believed love was a feeling. Now, not so much. I guess it takes me time to actually fall for someone, but when I do, it doesn't change and it gets stronger. I believe anyhow.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Is love a feeling, Jen? Is love, let's do all three at the same time. How about that? Is love a
Sure.
feeling? Is love a choice? What is attraction? So, in whatever way you see fit, uh, do a paragraph or so
Sure.
answering those three questions.
So, I think I remember I'm going to play off of what I had said the last show. I think love is both a feeling and a choice.
Hmm.
I don't think it's just one or just the other.
Right.
What is attraction? Um, you know, I would lean more toward it being a feeling attraction,
Right.
but I would love to hear anybody else's ideas on if they think differently, if they think
Uh-huh.
it's more of a choice. Gosh, and what is love? That is just a huge
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Um, gosh, Jesus.
That wasn't a swear, guys.
No, it wasn't a swear. You know, I don't know if any of you guys mentioned this one of the other shows, but I really think I can't help but think of the scripture, but at the same time, think about there being times that I've had flashes of thoughts when I think of somebody that I love and really, really care about. Like, not that I have thoughts like this all the time. I don't want you guys to think I'm like morbid, but like pushing them out of the way from a car and getting hit or taking a bullet from someone for someone. I think about that sometimes. And I do think that one of the most amazing acts of love is laying down your life for somebody. Um, so that's my answer.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Okay, so the few questions that I'm going to respond to: is love a feeling? Is love a choice? What is attraction? What is love? We're gonna group them all up instead of doing them one by one. Okay, is love a feeling? I think it starts as a feeling. In my opinion, it starts as attraction. So, what is attraction? It's seeing someone and liking parts of them, the parts that you're able to see, the parts that you're able to know. It could be physical attraction. It could be Jen answered on some of the previous incarnations of this broadcast that when she saw me, she loved that I love God, and there were various things about me that she loved, and I would say the same thing for her. I loved her laugh, and I was attracted to that, and I was attracted to her personality, and certainly it didn't hurt that she's a beautiful girl. That helped in that category. So there were lots of levels of attraction, and the attraction continued to grow the more I know her. And I'm more attracted to her today than I was the first time I met her because I do know her more. So the attraction doesn't have to end. And this is a topic for another night. We could really build a whole show around these couple questions here, especially the what is attraction, because people have different opinions. A lot of people think it's just chemicals. Well,
Yeah.
attraction chemicals. Either you feel an attraction towards someone or you don't. And then people often say, I've fallen out of love with you. I'm not attracted to you anymore. Well, the feelings just stopped for you. The chemicals just stopped. And a lot of people look at it as like, well, I'm not in love anymore because they associate being in love with the chemicals that come with attraction. And there's two different things. Being in love, in my opinion, is definitely a choice. It can start as a feeling, as Jen was saying, starts as a feeling, starts as attraction, but you choose to engage in that. You can have an attraction to someone, but you never speak to them, and then it just stays at that level. I'm attracted to that person, but it never turns into love, in my opinion. And it would be a choice to love that person that you feel attracted to. These things go hand in hand, though: attraction, love, and choice. All three, the trifecta, so to speak. So if a person is attracted to someone, then it becomes a feeling of like. A lot of times, there are people that believe love at first sight. That's where attraction goes, bam, knocks their brain out of whack. And then they say, oh, I'm in love with that person. Love at first sight. Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's choice to follow up on that, is my point. Um, Lastly, what is love? That's a way deeper question to ask. It's all the three things above. It's a choice, it's attraction, it's a feeling, and it can continue to grow. I know that for a fact. That's not my opinion. They continue to grow, and it has deeper levels. Love does. I believed I loved Jen as a friend when we first met, and now I love her for way more than that. And it seems to continue to deepen. It doesn't just stay at the same place. Even with the absence, well, I shouldn't say absence, even though the chemicals have changed, I still have moments when I look over at her and I feel the chemicals. Okay. So it's not that they just, I never feel them. They like completely went away, but I'm not basing my love for her on how I feel anymore. I'm basing it. I know that I love her. I don't need to check my body and check how I'm reacting to her to know that I love her. It's way deeper than that. It's on a soul level, in my opinion. So love is a mixture of many things that bring you to the point of making a choice to be with someone or to be in a relationship with someone. And it is, in my opinion, you're putting your whole heart into it, and you're doing whatever it takes to be a part of that person's life and to empathize with them and be there with them. It also means to me, if they get sick, you take care of them. If they're struggling with something, you help them.
Yeah.
You take them to the airport, you pick them up from the airport, you help them move, you do everything that's required. If you love a person, that's who you are to them. You're everything to them, everything you are capable of being. You can't be things that you're incapable of being, but you do everything else that you possibly can. That's my opinion.
That's awesome.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. Glenn, let's answer all these ones and I'll go over them again. I know you wrote them, but just for the sake of the listeners, is love a feeling? Is love a choice? What is attraction? What is love?
Okay. I think you know that it was your mother who sent me the tape by Marianne Williamson, which essentially espoused the principle that you love everybody equally.
Right.
Now, what you don't know is that we had a discussion about this. I don't think I've ever told you. Anyway, regardless, we talked about this, and I said to her, do you realize if for this a principle to be adopted, it means you become less important, in a sense, to me than you may have been before in how I perceive love to operate. In other words, I don't just love her more, I love her equally, or attempt to love her equally with everybody else. She said, I understand that, but it is a different way of looking at how this all works. And she was up for it, actually. So it took me quite a deal of time to come to I listened to that tape probably 50 times. And the more I listened to it, seriously, 50 times, I reckon.
Wow.
It took me that long to sort of try to understand the principle. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. And hence it skews my answers somewhat compared with how I would think most people would see this.
Okay.
It doesn't make Sandra more important than anybody here. All that is different is that the form that I have a relationship with Sandra is obviously different. I think that's helped me to live out a lot of things in a very, hopefully, stress less or a stress-free environment, because I'm not comparing love for one person with another. To me, it's just essentially like universal. So answering the question, moving from that to what is attraction? Well, I said 4 things the last time, and I'm going to stick to them.
Okay.
Values, principles, wisdom, and intelligence. I want someone I can communicate with, is smart, and has aligned values with the way I see things. I don't care what they look like. That's irrelevant. But I think you've got to have that. That, to me, is what is the attractive force. That's different from most, I know. Is love a feeling? Well, in the old days it used to be, but the more I adopted the Marianne Williamson philosophy, the less the feeling. In other words, the more I align with love everybody equally, the less chemicals there were, to the point where there were no chemicals. It was just pure experience. Is love a choice? Yes, I think so. I think at some point you make a conscious or a subconscious choice. Even if you try to love everybody equally, you're still choosing and you're still processing in your mind the choice or the form in which you want to associate with each person that you love. You obviously don't want to marry everybody. You don't want to go to the football match with everybody. You don't want to go on holidays with everybody. I think it's all about form, and love is universal as I see it, and that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a follow-up comment, my mom sent that to you, and apparently it had quite an impact on you. I would wonder if my mom were here listening to this today, I would ask her, so if she agrees with the idea that you love everyone equally, I would tell her, what's the problem with my father? I would ask her that. And that would be a hard question to ask. This was a person that my mom spent a lot of time trying to love, and on 2 occasions decided that she just couldn't do it. And not just love him, but live with him. And toward the end, before the end, she couldn't even be in the same room with him for a period of time. She couldn't stand to look at him. And he did some hurtful stuff. I'm not attacking my mother at all. I just would, under the guise of this conversation and loving people equally, I would want to ask her this hard question. My mother didn't shy away from hard questions. In fact, she would oftentimes move into them. She might be irritated that I asked, but then she would still answer it. And I love that about her. I still love that about her.
Can I ponder that with you for a second?
Of course you can.
I think she would say she loved your dad and myself equally, but the reciprocation was part of the attraction to me, and the interaction, reciprocation, that is a form. That's a form, that's not about love itself. I think you do choose people who are going to relate, like we said with friendship. I don't see it's essentially different. If you feel that someone is on your wavelength and really, like you said, wants to take you to the airport at 2 a.m., that's a huge attraction.
Yeah.
Someone's prepared to put themselves out for you.
Right. Wow, that touches my heart, actually, because I thought of Jen, and I'm willing to put myself out for her. I'm willing to do anything. I can't think of something that I'm capable of doing that I wouldn't do if she needed me to. I just can't. But if I'm being honest, which I always try to be, would I do that for anybody? And I would have to say no. Okay, so if someone I considered an acquaintance, called all their quote unquote friends and nobody can get them to the airport and they asked me to do it, would I do it? Yeah, probably. I draw the line at helping an acquaintance move, though.
I knew it.
You did.
I did. I was like, here it goes.
Yeah. So, but this is a fascinating topic, this idea of a universal love, loving everyone the same, even if the relationship is different, even if the way that, whether they respond to you or not, loving them the same. It's very interesting to me, and I'll have to give it more thought. But for the sake of tonight's broadcast, we'll move on. And everything we do somehow ends up in a broadcast. And so maybe that will focus on this one again. Thank you guys for your questions. I'm really enjoying this, despite all the times that we've tried to do it. It's different every time, and I think that's okay. Jen, if you would read the next paragraph, and we'll get to the next set of questions.
Yes. I am in a sad place today. Not sure why. Could it be because I am revisiting some of my past? Yes, I get devastated when people leave me. Things might be different if there was harmony and peace. Then that person wanted to leave. I am fine when it comes to non romantic relationships. I can do a mind reset for that area. It's the love, or what I believe is love. If someone doesn't want to be in my life, then I can't make them. I believe that's why I hold on to relationships, even bad ones. I apologize for things that I didn't do just to smooth things out. Writing all this makes me super sad that I would allow men to treat me badly. I know, as I said, I wasn't always perfect.
Thank you, Jen. Why might some people view the breakup of a non-romantic relationship as less devastating than the breakup of a romantic relationship? You want to tackle that one first, Jen?
Sure. I think at least for me, I think there's a lot more bonding that happens in romantic relationships and a lot more like rawness and gosh, what is the word I'm looking for?
Authenticity, maybe?
That's one way to describe it, but
Okay.
it's not as good as the word that I can't pull out of my brain.
Okay.
Just more raw and more real, I
Uh,
think, in romantic relationships. But I guess it depends on the people because
sure.
maybe some people are more fake in romantic relationships and they're more raw in their best friend relationships.
Right.
Maybe that feels safer to them. Um, Vulnerability, there's the word.
There it is.
Vulnerable. I tend to be a lot more vulnerable. Like, for example, with you, I'm a lot more vulnerable with you
Uh-huh.
than I am with anybody else.
Right.
So, if something were to happen to our relationship, which it won't,
No. No.
it would be quite a bit more devastating
Yeah.
than, like a friend or a best friend.
Right. Right. I agree. And again, this is the advantage to doing this broadcast again, because I answered this question differently. Initially, I said that I didn't see a huge difference. And I cited breakups with non romantic friends as being still
Yeah.
devastating.
Yeah. You've had some
Um,
ones that are hurtful.
I have, but the way that you put it, it bowled me over and
No.
changed my opinion on it because you were thinking about me. And then when I put it in that frame of mind, if something were to happen to you, my most important dynamic romantic relationship, that would be far more devastating than losing a friend. And in that in that realm, I named Marcus as one of my best friends. Um, when he dies, it is going to be devastating to me, no doubt about it. I mean, he's someone that I've known since I was 7 years old. That's a long time to be friends with a person. That's a lot of growing up together. It's a lot of getting to know their views, knowing them at a deeper level. And yes, I have helped him move, and he's helped me move. I have picked him up from the airport, and we've gone to the airport together. We flew to Michigan with my grandmother, and he and I then rented a car in Detroit and drove my grandma to Mason to spend time with her niece and her sister, and then we spent a week together in Michigan. Went up to St. Ignace, and so anyway, this is, you invest time in a person, but it's certainly non-romantic. So although it would still be devastating, if I compare it to the romantic relationship with Jen that I have, there's really no comparison in my own mind. Both things would be devastating. One thing, the loss of Jen, God forbid, would last a lot longer and be more difficult to recuperate from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't have a romantic relationship with my mother. I know that sounds weird to even have to say it like that, as we live in a weird world where, that sometimes is not the case. But I before she died, I used to think about her dying and think that it was going to be like super devastating. Now, it was devastating. Don't get me wrong. It was hard. But I was able to deal with it better than I thought I would. Um, that doesn't mean I didn't care about her. It doesn't mean it wasn't difficult.
Yeah.
It just surprised me. It was really something that surprised me. Anyway, that's a great question. Thank you, Jen, for your responses. And we'll go to Glenn. Why might some people view the breakup of a non-romantic relationship as less devastating than the breakup of a romantic relationship, Glenn?
Because they think they're losing more. They're believing that the romantic relationship is of higher value, so they think the sense of loss is greater. They're alone, etc., etc. All of those human emotions kick in. I remember within the first very short time, Son and I had a discussion about this. I've said before, we were in a relationship within hours between,
Yeah.
and we're still here after 22 years. So we were doing something right. But she said to me, she said, if this ever breaks up, it's going to mean that either one of us or both of us were not authentic right here in this moment.
Right.
And I thought that is so true. So really, I thought, well, I'm being authentic. I've got nothing to worry about from my point of view. This is just forever until one of us goes over the edge.
Right.
And that's how it's played out. And I don't think I think people tend to place the view of it being devastating, when in fact, a lot of times it's actually beneficial. I think it's a mindset. I think it's all to do with how people perceive relationships generally, whether it be friendships or whether it be romance or whatever. I don't see that, from my point of view, that they're any different, because I think the same sort of dynamics are in play here. It's just the way people interpret the loss. And
Sure.
of course, I've been through the romantic and the non-romantic breakups. They're not good.
Right.
In the olden days, I would have said the romantic is way more devastating.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the other camp. The end of any relationship is not good, but there's always a reason why. And you go search for the reasons why, and I think it's going to make it a lot easier to get on with your life. So,
yeah. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Not trying to put you on the spot here, but in this, before I move on from this question to the next one, you are always so free and open to talk about the relationship you had with my mother, and I know that when she died, that's how you and I started to become friends again. Friends. We weren't friends before. In my opinion, we were just acquaintances, and so the way that I am terming, the answering the previous question, acquaintance, friend, best friend, things like that. But we started talking, regardless of what our opinions of friends are. We started talking when my mom died. So my question for you is, I know that you had a romantic relationship that turned into something else, but that was equally devastating to you. I know you've talked publicly before about how difficult that was, the loss of her. So do you find that to be, when you think about losing friends, fitting this into the way that you've answered this question, do you feel like that would be the same level of devastation as some of the other people that if they were to pass?
I don't think I can answer on an individual basis, but I can tell you how I think it worked with your mum.
Okay, that's fine.
I think I've mentioned, I don't know what I've said on air, but for 2 weeks, literally, I was more devastated and an absolute mess than I've been with the death of any person. Like a factor of 10 to 100 times worse. And I had to obviously put Sandra was saying, what's going on here? And I just tried to explain it. I said, so let me put the context of the relationship with your mum in picture. And we had talked subsequent, which people don't know about, but we'd agreed that the relationship was never over. So from my point of view, her death did not really change anything. I was still connected in the same way. To my mind, the relationship was just the same.
Yeah.
My devastation was what she had told me in a private way about the things that she hadn't had for herself in her life. And I was so swept out for her.
Right.
Not for me. It was what I felt she had not been able to have in her life that she really desired. That was the hurt. That's the hurt.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I don't know that answered the question specifically, but I'm just giving you some context here.
No, that was, I wasn't expecting something, specific or particular. I think it's good for people to hear the emotions of that. When we lose someone, just like we lost Jenà, and we had different levels of relationship with her, and we're doing these broadcasts. So obviously it was still devastating to us. And I'm not going to compare like how David feels to how I feel. You can't. It's a different level of relationship. They knew each other in a way deeper way than I was able to get to know Jenà, and that's the way that it is. And so I don't think you can quantify, like compare how you feel about the loss of someone to someone else. But I know, pertaining to my mother, I know that was a big deal. And what you're describing, I feel the same way about her. I wish that she had made different choices, but she was a grown woman, and if she were here to answer now, we would ask her, do you regret the choices you made and the path that your life took? For instance, getting back with my dad and having him build a house for the grandkids to come to, and they still talk about it. I think she would say no. I think she would say that, yeah, she had some regret about not ever being able to move to Michigan and things like that. But I think that she would stand by her decisions. I really do. I could be wrong about that, but it's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
How that affected you, Glenn, just on a personal level. Okay. Thank you for your answers, Glenn. I really appreciate it. All right. So I think it's my turn, right? No, I answered.
Yeah. Did you? Okay.
Okay. Didn't I answer? What might some people view? Yeah, I think I said, okay, so I'm just going to make this quick, just in case, because I can't remember as many times we've done this. I know I've answered the question before.
Oh, you went after me.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. Okay. And Jen, we're going to start with you this time. Why might some people sacrifice their own, quote, peace and harmony to stay in a toxic relationship?
Whew. Oh my gosh. I have a long list of why I did.
Right.
I'll just hash that out really quick.
Sure.
I just lay it right out there.
Lay it right out there, babe.
So part of it was being a believer and feeling like getting a divorce was wrong and that I'd be shamed and guilted, and
Yeah.
felt like it was going to make God angry. I felt like my ex was my mission field.
Yeah.
And that it was my job to save him.
Uh-huh.
I felt like he would fall apart if I left.
Yeah.
I was afraid to leave. Gosh, I know there's more. I did not see my worth enough to leave, honestly. There was some serious abuse going on and it just was so crazy that I couldn't even see a lot of it until after I left. But I just was so focused on what other people were going to think, and what I was afraid of my ex. I didn't know how he'd react. I mean, he overreacted to things that were small in my eyes. So the thought of leaving, I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to be good.
Yeah.
Another reason was because I do believe in a God that's almighty, and I was afraid that if I left and he had reconciliation and healing somewhere around the corner, I thought, how can I jump ship if there's reconciliation or healing around the corner?
Right.
And that's why I really, really had to pray and make sure I was getting the go-ahead from God to leave.
Sure.
That wasn't coming from me. But yeah, I think a lot of people stay in toxic situations and forgo their own peace and safety sometimes. My gosh. I even think sometimes it is God's will for you to leave, and sometimes people step aside around that. You know, they have their own hangups as to why they should stay.
Right.
Codependency kept me in that relationship far longer than I should have stayed.
Right.
So that's my answer.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah. I love your answer. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take too long with this. I would say use the reasons Jen used, and that was very personal to her. But I think part of it's fear, fear of a person, and I'm sure men or women, probably more generally women. If the person they're with, it's toxic, but they're a provider, can I make it on my own? The fear of that could keep someone in a relationship, and that's not just an opinion. I've heard people's story, and that's one of the reasons they list. I didn't know where to go or what to do and things like that. So fear, and not just fear of financial issues, like what am I going to do? Especially when you've been with the person for a long time. I think the longer you're with a person, the harder it is to leave. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I think. People saying I stayed in it because of the children. I think that's one of the worst reasons to stay in a toxic relationship, because if it's toxic for you, it's probably toxic for the kids too. It's not just like, oh, he's great with the kids, but he's horrible to me. Can that happen? Maybe, but it's not good. It's not good for them to see. If it's toxic for you, it's not good for your kids to see that. They can grow up thinking, oh, that must be how I treat people. No, it's not good. So there are plenty of reasons, but I'm going to finish with this and say, I don't think for anyone sacrificing your own peace and harmony is worth it to stay in a relationship, regardless of what the church thinks, or what other people think, or what your parents think, what your friends think, your best friends, your acquaintances, whatever. It's not good. Peace and harmony is important. And if you're using the word toxic to describe a situation, you have to figure out in the end whether that's going to work for you or not. And in most cases, I don't think it works for anyone. It's not good. So I'll leave it there. What do you think, Glenn? Why might some people sacrifice their own peace and harmony to stay in a toxic situation?
Yeah, short one. Other than the people who have reasons, as we've spoken about, they can't leave, they can't be on a park bench, or they've got nowhere to go, or their child will be lacking medical care, or any reason that they can't, and it's just too hard. There's no way. Why would you want to stay and do toxic? Not a chance. I'm out of there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn. When someone says they know my heart, what might this mean? And I'll go first. When someone says they know my heart, what might this mean? As I've said the 3 other times, this one's a fun one. It's also kind of complex because people use this in terms of talking about God all the time. And sometimes it's innocuous. Sometimes there's no issue with someone saying that. But other times it's to put that up when someone's questioning their behavior in some way. Well, God knows my heart. Well, that's true. God does know your heart. That doesn't mean that that's a washover comment to say that we should, be unkind to others or not loving or be in a toxic situation with someone else. That's not an excuse. Well, he knows my heart. That to me, that's just doesn't wash. In human relationships, they know my heart. If that's true, then that's just something you're saying to describe the status of the relationship. It's not an excuse. You're not throwing it up there to prove your behavior or to support your bad behavior. In terms of Jen and myself, I think she knows me better than anybody else. And that will only get deeper, her knowing my heart. And I've said it to her before. I've used this phrase with her in a way of explaining why something that she thought might bother me doesn't bother me, or it doesn't happen very often at all, so it's hard to come up with a specific example. Let's say she wakes me up and wants to talk in the middle of the night. That doesn't bother me at all. She can wake me up anytime, and it's important to me. And then she might ask after, well, I thought you might be irritated. And I say, no, I'm not irritated. I know your heart. To me, that means that I know that she wouldn't do that just to annoy me. She wouldn't just wake me up and want to talk just as a way to
sleep deprivation.
Right. Yeah. Some kind of narcissistic control mechanism. Because she's not capable of that. Honestly, I believe that she's not capable of that kind of thing. So if I use the term, they know my heart, or she knows my heart, or I say that to her, I know your heart. It's simply saying, I know you at a deeper level. And so I don't have to have you explain all your behavior to me. I don't. And I react to you based on what I know about you, rather than individual situations where if someone from the outside saw it, they might say, oh, I can't believe that happened. Well, I know it's not intentional. Always. So to me, I don't know if I explained that well, but that's my answer to that. Go ahead, Jen. When someone says they know my heart, what might this mean?
Well, I wrote this in the comments. I believe that this is someone knowing who you are and your intentions behind words and actions.
Mm,
Um, like I can say, God knows my heart.
mhm.
Um, he knows all of it, every part of it. Now, I don't think humans can know our hearts better than God can. I think there's a
Right,
huge gap there.
right.
um, but I think it's knowing someone like you had said, just really thoroughly as much as you can. When you're with someone often and in a relationship, whether friendship or romantic,
Yeah,
and that's always growing. Hopefully, you're still getting to
right,
know these people, more and more every day.
right.
But you know what it made me think of? It made me think of those fights that happen where you've got two people that obviously love each other, and one person does something and the other person explodes, and then the person that they exploded on gets offended and upset because whatever they did or said, it was taken out of context in the sense of, like, I thought you knew me and I thought you would know that I wouldn't mean this when I said this, or I didn't mean this when I did this because you know me, you know my
Right.
heart.
You know I didn't mean it.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that happens in relationships a lot, even toxic ones, actually.
Mhm.
Usually it's used as a tactic
Sure.
in toxic relationships, unfortunately. But it just made
Sure.
me think about that, how it's good to know each other's hearts as best you can, and to remember who people are.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to react out of our own hurts or wounds or
Sure.
past issues with other people,
Mhm.
and we're reacting to someone who we know their heart. We know that they didn't necessarily. I mean, you and I have gone through this a couple of times because I've
Mhm.
had triggers from my past relationship.
Sure.
I have to remind myself, you are not my ex.
Right.
You're Jason.
Well, you shouldn't have to try real hard to remind
No,
yourself of that.
it's a pretty good gap. Pretty big differences.
Oh, good.
So that's my answer.
Thank you, Jen.
Welcome.
Glenn, when someone says they know my heart, what might this mean?
No idea. I think it's a dumb paragraph. I, what?
What?
That makes no sense to me. What makes sense is they know me or they understand me, but know my heart. What? Yeah, correct.
Wasn't this your question? Aren't you the one that wrote this?
Yeah, but
Well,
I write the questions. That doesn't mean I'm going to answer them the same as you do.
Oh, I know.
no, we know that. Oh my gosh, how long we've been doing this?
I just think it's a very nebulous saying. If it obviously it has a meaning to people there, but to me it's just irrelevant. They know
Yeah.
my heart. Duh. Thanks.
You set us up.
Oh, that's good stuff. Classic Glenn from Australia.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. We're moving right along, folks. Well, we're doing pretty well, I think. We've gone through an hour of broadcast, and so far I haven't seen the thing even blink. I'm not trying to jinx it, of course. It's going pretty well. Okay, so Jen, if you would read the next paragraph, and we'll come to the final question.
Okay. I think I was there at one point in my life. I remember knowing that until I am secure in me, I would attract better people. That was before I was 25. I need this to stick and not be wavering. It seems Jen isn't wavering. I cannot anymore. I am valuable. I really want to believe it. Honestly, Glenn, I think I shut myself down, decided that my thoughts and opinions didn't matter, and I stopped being in touch with me. Not only that, but having my anxiety for over 6 years was a nightmare. Truly, I couldn't bear it after 3 years and tried to take my life. But God wanted me here. For me, being quiet has become me. I have almost forgotten my opinions at times, what I like or not like. I suppose this is why I feel messed up or lost. I can see that I have a weakness, not sure what that is, but not able to tell people I'm secure, not comfortable.
Thank you, Jen. Before we get to the last question and I read the rest of this, I'm assuming that she's talking about our Jen here. Is that correct, Glenn?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, so she says it seems Jen isn't wavering.
Well, she'd listened to what Jen's had to say on the broadcast, and she was impressed. And she then said, "Well, Jen can do it.
Yeah.
Jen has done it. She didn't always do it. So
Mhm.
what if she can do it? Maybe I can."
Yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I thought. I just wanted to point that out. And it's not always, and Jen can speak for herself, but from my observation, sometimes it's not easy, but Jen doesn't waver. The idea of wavering, I'm not sure how Jenà thought of it in terms of Jen. But as I told her today, the difference is, sometimes we talk about my ex-wife and the differences between the two of them, and she often does the same thing with her ex as well. And it's not to compare. I mean, it's not the purpose of comparing necessarily, except to show that this relationship is far different than those ones, either one of them. And one of the big differences with Jen and my ex-wife is that Jen actually is engaged in the relationship. That alone is something that makes the relationship work. If the other person you're with isn't engaged and they're just laying in bed with the lights off and can't work and doesn't do anything around the house and it pretty much is just disconnected all the time, there's going to be some problems there, and that's not the case with Jen. She's very, very engaged and very involved, and I try to tell her all the time how much I appreciate that. But the other thing I wanted to say was, yes, Jen is a good example of someone that went through a lot. Now, I don't know all the specifics other than the comments I've read of what Jenà went through. All we know is what Jen says, and if Jen can do it, anyone out there can do it, but you have to decide that you're worth it. And a lot of people start out with a discrepancy in the area of their self-esteem, as we've talked about on this broadcast.
Yeah.
many
And no one's going to follow through with their healing if they don't think they're worth it.
I don't need to say anything else. You just summed it up, Jen. Thank you for that. That's
And
great.
there's so much that she says in these write-ups that I can the old me can relate to.
Yeah.
I feel like she's reading my diary here.
Wow. Okay.
And I just, man.
Yeah. Before we get to the last question, so in the last of this paragraph from Jenà, one of the things that I noticed it every time. She says, "I suppose that's why I feel messed up or lost. I can't see that I have a weakness, not sure what that is, but not able to tell people I'm insecure, not comfortable."
I think she did know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she says it. She says she can't see it, but then she says, "I'm unable to tell people I'm insecure, not comfortable."
That doesn't seem right, does it? Because she's laid this out for everybody, for me to see in black and white after a couple of, within a couple of days or a few hours of conversation. I mean, it can't
Right.
be much more explicit about what your perceived weaknesses are than just reading this.
Mhm.
Uh,
Agreed.
I don't know if you guys remember, but I was in such a fog, like even before I left my ex. It's such a mind F. And I don't know everything that Jenà went through. But it sounds like, from her writings that she was in a similar mind space where it's like anytime Glenn was trying to talk with me and help me see things, at 1 second I'd get it and the next it was gone. Like it was like trying to hold a fart. Like the wind. I was just like, it would be like solid 1 minute and then like a vapor the next. And I mean, Glenn, God bless your patience, man. You really had to drill things home sometimes because it took me a few rounds to actually get it, like get it like for me to see it, to see the reality I was in, to see the abuse. And not just that, but to see that I could not change this other person.
Right.
What was in my hands and my power to do was what I was doing, what I was accepting,
Mhm.
what I was saying or doing or not saying or not doing, all of that.
Right.
So I can completely relate to this part, of her
Sure.
writing.
Mhm.
It's really difficult,
Yeah.
but thank God I finally grasped it and just white knuckled it from there forward.
Yeah. You did a
Jeez.
fantastic job, and if you hadn't met me, you wouldn't have met Glenn, and if you hadn't met Glenn, you and I probably wouldn't be together, because
Yeah.
if you had not realized the things that you and Glenn talked about your situation, if that had never happened, I don't know how long you would have stayed in that toxic situation.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to God, obviously, first and foremost, and also grateful to Glenn, which I've told him,
Yeah.
because at the time I couldn't get involved in that part of it
Yeah.
because of my own feelings. If I had said, "Yeah, Jen, you need to get away from this guy," and you did that based on what I said, and we got together, then how would that look? I would have known that I was very influential in that happening, and it couldn't be that. You had to.
Yeah.
You
It
had
had to be my choice for
Yeah.
me and only me.
Right. Exactly. Okay. There's nothing unique here. This can be any one of us. To everyone who hears or reads this broadcast, your opinion does matter. You matter. And I want to address this before we move on. To everyone who hears or reads this broadcast, your opinion does matter. You matter. You matter. You. And if you're hearing the sound of my voice, you matter. You don't have to matter to me. You don't have to matter to other people in your family or your friends or whatever. The bottom line is you matter, and whether you believe in God or not. But for the people listening that believe in God, who in these chat boxes, not on this one, I haven't seen it in a long time, but when you talk about your life and your struggles and things like that, and low self-esteem, yeah, if you believe in what God did, if you believe that he sent his son into this world to die for you, and you claim to believe that, how can you possibly believe that you don't matter? How does that happen? And I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. Just think about that. Just think about the idea of, if you're a believer and you believe that God sent his son into the world to die for your sins, all the sins of the world. If you believe that and understand that, which is the traditional belief of Christian people, then how can you look at your life and say that you don't matter? I don't know how that's possible. If you're not a believer, you don't believe God exists, or don't have anything to do with that, you still matter. You still have a purpose in life. You're living, you're breathing, blood's flowing through your veins. You have a purpose. You matter. So many people just give their life up, and we know that. We know suicide is a big thing, and that's not what happened in this particular situation. But I feel like, based on these conversations that she had with Glenn, I feel like there was a discrepancy in this area for her. I don't feel like she understood how much she mattered. And these words that we're talking about, that we've tried this fourth time to get out there, I believe the purpose of it is to get this one point across that's in capital letters and with an exclamation point in the write-up. You matter. You're important. You have a purpose in this world. There are people that, if you're not here, would never get an opportunity to benefit from what you've been through, even if you've struggled.
Especially
You
if you struggled.
matter. Yeah, especially if you struggled. We don't know, because Jenà, her life was cut short. We don't know what she would have gone on to do. And it's like it's like the movie we watch at Christmas every year. It's a Wonderful Life. That character got an opportunity. He made the statement that it'd be better if he'd never been born. He made that statement. And I understand how someone can get to that point of thinking that. And he had a rare opportunity that a lot of us never get to see or experience, of seeing what the amount of lives his existence touched and how it changed with him not being there. And that's always moved me. Even when I was a kid, I just thought, oh, wow. I mean, all these things changed. I didn't have the same understanding back then as I do now. But I understood that there was something important there. You know, with this person, any person not being there, the amount of lives that could be touched by that person that's not there anymore, we can't ever know. So just know, if you're hearing this and you're alive, you matter. There's a reason you're here, believer or not believer. Glenn put that in the chat. Same principle apply, in my opinion, believer or not. Agreed. Completely agree. You matter. That's the point. Okay, I've gone on about that enough. Does anyone else want to comment on that before we move on to the final question?
Just say I agree.
Okay.
Completely agree.
Okay, and here we are, folks. The final question. How does one create a safe environment for one person to speak with another? And we'll start with Glenn this time. How does one create a safe environment for one person to speak with another?
Be prepared to invest time to listen. And when someone really pours their heart out, sure, be prepared to listen first. But I think reciprocation is important. If someone can hear back from you, your circumstances and your stories, I think that there's a degree of comfort in that means you're just not totally isolated in the world. I think this is an interchange between two people as equals, not one as being the authority and one being the student. When we come to these situations, everyone is equal. Mm-hmm. I think that's critical, that they don't feel like you're some kind of savior or you're speaking down to them. No, I don't think it gets anywhere. I think that same as love, equal. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate your comments. What about you, Jen? How does one create a safe environment for one person to speak with another?
Gosh, I'd have to definitely agree with Glenn, the listening. And there's kind of an art to it because, I think sometimes, I think we talked about this in one of the other broadcasts, maybe it was one of the ones that messed up, but how some people listen to respond. Or react? I'm trying to respond in the way where, like, instead of listening and kind of making sure the person feels heard in your attempt to try to relate, it's almost like you have to sense the conversation. I think some people share too quickly their part, and it kind of takes the spotlight off of the other person's pain. There is an art to it, but I do think, like Glenn said, that reciprocating, sharing your struggles as well.
Yeah.
It's huge, and I've shared this story before where I would try to open up in like small groups at a church that I went to in the past, and no one ever shared anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, and there was like 12 other girls in this life group or small group. It was so weird. And so it ended up making me feel like I was the only one that had problems. I was like, yay.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Never coming here again,
Yeah.
And then that kind of flowed into the whole, people playing church and, that whole thing. Yeah. Everybody's acting perfect. Nobody's sharing any struggles. And so it just creates this atmosphere of fake and acting and, this faux perfectness, whether it was with jobs or marriages or kids or whatever.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. I'm very passionate about that. So one, listening, like Glenn said, is incredibly important. I think validating is huge, or acknowledging, as Glenn would put it. And then, sharing goes both ways.
Yeah.
I agree.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, you have shared that story a lot, and
not too much. Oh no.
No, not too much. In fact, I think
like
it's
a lot.
There's a story. Well, no, it's just, it's an important story, is my point. It's a story that shaped your perspective and your perception of the fact that, I think, unfortunately, in a church situation, you were wanting to share and you were opening up and being authentic, and there wasn't no one took the bait.
Yeah. It made me feel like it wasn't safe to share at
Well,
all.
it's
And it
not.
kind of encouraged me to move into that place of acting as well, which is horrible.
Yeah.
And then I got married to someone who told me countless times that my feelings and emotions were inconvenient to him. So it just went from bad to worse. I was
Yeah.
like, I can't share anything. It's not safe. Nowhere is safe, which is a horrible place to be, to have all of this stuff. We all have emotions and feelings, and to have all of that bottled up and not have anyone to share it with
Yeah.
is just awful. It's just such a lonely existence inside your head.
Mhm.
Gets very dark.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you, Jen. I really think that how I answered this question the last time we did this was the best, and there's no way I can recreate it. But I still feel the same about this question. So, how does one create a safe environment for one person to speak with another? It's being open, being honest, being authentic, being available. That's a big one. Being vulnerable, listening, active listening. I think I mentioned that, and that's
Yes.
important. Doing the opposite of what Jen was saying that some people do, and this is true. They do that when you're having a conversation with them. It seems like they're just waiting to answer from their perspective. They're not actively listening.
No.
And it's a defense mechanism, yes, but it's also a horrible way to have the relationship work, for you to be just waiting for your opportunity to speak. Some people don't even wait; they just interrupt. You're just talking over you, and that doesn't work either. Being available, I already said, but it's important to talk about what that means. Being there for the person whenever. I mentioned Jen waking me up in the middle of the night, and that doesn't happen. Usually I come to bed late a lot of times, and sometimes she'll wake up when I come to bed. So it's me doing it, actually, not her. And sometimes she'll want to talk, and I'm delighted by that. I have no problem, regardless of how late it is, talking to her. But the point is, I'm being available to her at whatever time. And I know beyond any shadow of a doubt that if I needed her in the middle of the night, I could wake her up and she would be there for me.
Yeah.
In fact, she's been upset with me on nights that I say, "Oh, I had a lot of anxiety last night," and you said you should slap me on the arm playfully and
Why
say,
did you wake me up?
"Why didn't you wake me up?" Yeah. I think it's hard. It's hard sometimes. Men especially, unfortunately, think, "Well, I'm going to deal with this myself," and that is my excuse. That I've been alone for a long time, and I had to deal with my own situations, and there weren't people that I felt like I could trust. But the beauty of it is the way things are now. I have more than one person that I could go to in the middle of the night or any time that would be there for me. I know that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to embarrass Glenn, but I believe that if I reached out to Glenn even and needed to talk to him about something, I feel like he would be willing to listen, and he wouldn't call me out on the lateness of the hour or the earliness of the hour, whatever.
Not a chance. The door doesn't shut at 6 p.m.
Right, because you're an available person, and in answer to this question, how does one create a safe environment for one person to speak with another? To me, that's a huge part. Being available for the conversation at whatever time. And I think I said everything I want to say about active listening and things like that. All those things are very, very important. And if you provide those things for another person, make them know that you're safe. You're not only is the environment safe, but you yourself are safe. We talk a lot about, in relationships, coming to the table, sitting down. A lot of people don't want to come to the table because the table isn't safe. It's not a safe table. So they may even have a part of them that would like to do that would like to address each issue as it comes up, but they don't feel safe to do that. So it's extremely important in any relationship, friendship or romantic or non-romantic, whatever, is to provide that safe environment on your end. You can't make someone else do it for you, but you can provide it on your end. You can make the decision that I'm going to be safe for people that I care about, or safe for anybody, safe for a stranger that you meet. I had a friend that when I was writing plays, and he was an actor. His name is Raj, and we still talk from time to time. Really, really great guy, and he was one of my actors, one of the plays that I wrote and we produced. And in the play, he played a character that I wrote that was a videographer, like that takes shots with his camera, and then he had his own YouTube show. Long before I ever had a YouTube show, I was fascinated by the fact that people did that. They would take their camera and film other people and then put it up on YouTube. It was just fascinating to me. So I created a character that did this as his job, and he played that character. And after one of the rehearsals, we were talking, and he said, I love the idea of single serving friends, single serving friendships. And he explained that what that is to him is you're out somewhere, maybe in an airport cafe or something like that, and you get to talking to someone. They're waiting for their flight, you're waiting for your flight, and you strike up this wonderful conversation that just happens out of the blue sometimes. And you don't exchange numbers. You don't get their information, they don't get your information. And you're okay with that. You're okay that in that moment they were someone that you'll not forget because of what you talked about, but the relationship doesn't move on from there. It just fascinates me. I'm the guy that if I have a conversation like that, I'm like, yeah, what's your phone number? Sometimes in my job, I'll talk to I was talking to a guy on Friday. He just was one of those people that it just seemed like he was a good guy. Now, I'm not able to give personal information about myself or be in touch with the customer, but I told him about our broadcast. I'm allowed to do that. They can't keep me from doing that. I won't get dinged for that. Told him what we do here, and he said he might be interested in listening. Whether he does or not, that's beside the point. I can look at it as a single serving friendship, for the hour that I was on the phone with the guy. I just think it's a beautiful thing. The reason I brought that up, because I believe that I provide a safe environment for everyone I speak to. And I love that about myself. I think it's a good thing. And when I notice someone else is doing that, even if they're a stranger, I think it's nice. It's nice and it's rare. That's all I have to say about that. Glenn, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I forgot whether you answered this one. I think you did.
I did. Before you close, I just wanted to say something about tomorrow night's show too, please.
Please do.
So I can do it now or later. It's up to you.
We're almost done. I'm going to read the last little part of this, and unless either of you have more you want to go over, I mean, I'm happy to do whatever you guys would like to do. I'm just thrilled that we got through it this time without any disconnects here. So whatever you guys want to do is fine with me.
Finish it, and then I'll just say something, please.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we did answer all the questions. Next week, which is actually tomorrow, part 6, the final part of An Unfinished Life, we'll invite you to have your day in the sun. Anyway, that's how I described it to our good friend Gia. I wonder who will avail themselves of this opportunity, We shall see. And then we end with a quote. We humans have 2 great problems. The first is knowing when to begin. The second is knowing when to stop. Paulo Coelho. There you go.
All right. Made it through.
Okay. Yeah, we got through. Congratulations. 4th time's a charm, so to speak. Okay, Glenn, go ahead with your comment, and I'll do the closing festivities, and then we'll say goodnight to the peoples.
Sure, day in the sun coming up. As part of the chats with Jenà, she made the comment on more than one occasion that she was not worthy of God, or God hated her, or something like that. You get the drift. And even though she's not specifically mentioned in tomorrow night's broadcast, what she said did initiate a chat between Jen and myself about lots of these issues, and that is going to form the basis of tomorrow night's show. I think there's some very interesting things to be spoken about. Some of them are going to be tough, and I think particularly appropriate and applicable to believers across the board and others, but mainly focused on believers because that's how the conversation with Jen went. So I certainly invite you to come along. I think it's going to be, well, I hope it will be enlightening for all.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It'll be posted soon too.
Thank you. Okay, so as mentioned, this will be part 6 in a series, and Glenn's going to need a break after this, so it'll be Jen and myself. It'll be our turn to continue with a few broadcasts, and we'll give Glenn a break. And I just before we close, I just appreciate everything that he does, including putting up with the technical issues that we've been having tonight. As far as I could see the whole time, I was kind of keeping an eye on it. The connection never wavered. Sometimes it even says no data for a minute, and I didn't see that happen one time. So we're very grateful that we were able to get this out. As I said at the beginning, if you weren't here, we felt like it was very important. This topic is important. The idea of your opinion does matter. You matter. That, to me, is the general idea, and the idea that we lost a person that was part of our broadcast that was in the chat, and a lot of you had a chance to have conversations with her. And that person, if you're a believer, we have hopes that we'll see her again. But for now, that person is no longer available to us. And I just putting my thoughts certainly and my prayers out toward David, the person that was close to her, close to Jenà. And we've had the pleasure of being able to talk to him on a couple of occasions. And hopefully he'll get a chance to hear this now that we've gone through the whole thing and got through it without any tech issues. And we're doing this for Jenà, but also for everyone that cared about her. And hopefully this has been beneficial to you guys. Thank you for your patience with us. And I wasn't sure anyone would even show up, but some of the same folks that listened to the broadcast did indeed show up. And I see there's a spirited conversation between Believe on Lord Jesus Christ and our friend Joel. Both are friends, and it's respectful, and that's good. And that's the kind of thing we like to see. Of course, we want people to listen and pay attention to what we're talking about, but unlike some people that I've worked with in the past, it just really makes them mad if you're having side conversations. It's the opposite for us. We just want you to enjoy talking to people in the chat. And if you're doing that, you enjoy being here, then we're definitely cool with that. So thank you guys for being here. Okay, so as a reminder, tomorrow's broadcast, part 6, will begin at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time instead of the usual 9 p.m. We're also considering changing that to our permanent start time. As I explained in one of the broadcasts that didn't work out, I was saying why we thought that might be a good idea. Usually Jen and I both, and I'm sure Glenn, this is his work time, this particular time of the year. I know the time is different for him, but earlier he said would be better for him, and earlier would be better for us, because after a broadcast, usually my mind is still working and I can't go to bed right away. So an earlier end time too would be helpful. So just give us your opinion whether that would be helpful. We've heard from a couple people, but let us know how you feel about that start, and we'll have a chance to test it out tomorrow. Okay, so right now we're going to resume our Tuesday night meetings at 8:30 p.m. This upcoming week. So everyone's welcome to that. It's in our Discord, True Story Live Discord. I think most of the people in here have that address, so I don't need to pop that in there. So join us, and it's not recorded or anything. It's not a broadcast, as you know. It's just, hanging out for a little while. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 2 hours, whatever. And people, the beauty of the Discord is I don't have to, come back and shut it down or whatever. You guys can go in there anytime. It's open all the time. It's never closed. You can go in there. If anyone's in there, you can talk to them as much as you like, and we invite you to do so. As always, if you have any comments or suggestions for the shows, you can always send me an email to truestorylive.crips@gmail.com, or you can put it in the comments in the description. We appreciate each and every one of you very much. And remember, I think the main theme of the show is that you matter, and you certainly matter to us. So
Yeah.
we thank you for being here. Jen, if you could say goodbye to the peoples.
Goodbye, peoples. So grateful for everyone that came out tonight. This is important. I'm just very, very grateful that nothing fell over, as Glenn put it. We love you and miss you, Jenà. And we love you guys and hope you'll have a good night. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you, Jen. Glenn, if you would say goodbye to the peoples.
Good night all. Great that it went well. Now, with my fingers crossed, etc. Catch you tomorrow night, I hope. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Enjoyed being here. Thanks very much. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. As I've said this a few times, but it bears repeating. I appreciate your patience. Honestly, if it fell down and you were just done with it, which I would understand if you were, that would be the end, because I don't know how to produce it myself, and I can't do both. I've been in that situation a few times with other broadcasts and things, and it just doesn't work for me. So it would be unfortunate, let's put it that way. So I'm thankful that you were willing to do some things on your end, and you don't get paid for this, which is unfortunate. I would love to have enough income somehow. I don't know how that would even work, but some people actually make money doing shows on YouTube, but we don't. So I can't pay anyone to be here, but out of the kindness of both of your hearts, you're willing to do this with me, and I'm very grateful. Okay. And Glenn, you matter, just so you know.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. This has been episode 5 of An Unfinished Life, Restlessness, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for part 6 at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you then. Good night.